Okay, marhaban, assalamu alaikum, welcome back, and we are just making our way through the alphabet, and we're getting pretty far done, getting close to the end here. And so today we have for you two new consonants. These two are both sounds you find in English, very common, and they're both going to use the same basic shape. So in that sense, it's fairly easy. And this is a very pretty, very beautiful letter to write. It's somewhat challenging, though, in terms of keeping track of your spikes. Okay? And so counting how many spikes you do is the challenge here. So our letter today is Siin, and its cousin Sheen. And you may guess by the sound of those, Siin is S, as in singer, single, sick, Saturday, and Sheen is the SH sound. Now don't be fooled, just because in English we use two letters for sh, it's one sound and it really needs one letter, as in shower. Okay? All right, so let's look at these. Now this one, as I say, you're going to have to count your spikes here. Now, let's look at this letter first, the way it will appear at the beginning of a word or in the middle of a word. And this one, thankfully, is not like ha. It doesn't have a whole lot of variation to it. So most everything's very simple with this one. So let's look. At the beginning of a word, have 1, 2, 3 spikes. Now, you notice we've been dealing with one spike, sometimes two at the end of a word. This one has 3 spikes that come fairly close together. This is the only time you're ever going to see 3 spikes in a row with no dots on them. So this is seen. Again, do it again. Okay, now at the middle of a word, very similar. It's just going to connect right into it. Okay, very, very similar. Okay. Now, as I say, you have to get used to the spike management, counting the number of spikes that you do. Now, if you have to stop and do it, it's no problem. But generally what you want to do is you're starting to write these words, you sort of count them and remember what letter that you're on. So say, for example, I needed to combine a be plus a seen plus a ta. Okay? So I'm going to have 1 spike for the ba, 1, 2, 3, and then the ta, like that. So you kind of have to remember, I got a ba, and then I go 1, 2, 3, reminding me that that's seen and it's a ta. Another thing you want to do is notice how these 3 are somewhat set off from the others. That again is making it clear that these 3 are one letter, and that's the letter seen. Now if I don't do that, what I end up with is a really whole large number of spikes coming one after another. It's a little bit tricky, but you can do that. Okay, so that is the seen at the beginning of a word and in the middle of a word. Now let's see what this looks like when it comes by itself or at the end of the word. Okay, let's say I have seen by itself. Well, it's going to start off exactly the same way. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, but instead of stopping, I'm going to come under the line and make a big loop. Notice it makes a hoop here. So 1, 2, 3, and then the hoop. The 3 is the beginning of the hoop that comes under the line. And you'll see some variation on how high this comes up. It looks better if the loop is, has more of a loop to it. But notice there's no dots anywhere on this, okay? And this is only at the end. So think of this is only going to come at the end of a word. This is a connector because we did all of our non-connectors in the last lesson, so we know this is a connector. So this is only going to happen at the end of a word. So think of it like the flourish at the end of a word. You just wrote a long word and then you make that flourish. So it's okay when you're writing this, you can even count them out loud. Ba, 1, 2, 3, like that. Okay, so that is our letter seen. Now, we promised you'd get 2 letters today, seen and sheen. Well, the good news is sheen is exactly like seen. However, it's going to have 3 dots. 3 dots on top. Now this is unusual because this shape, it's only 2 letters, and the only variant is one with 3 dots. There's no 1 dot, there's no 2 dot variation to this. I think perhaps the reason it is that you have 3 is because it's such a big shape. You have these 3 spikes, it would look a little bit odd with just 1 dot in the middle. Okay, so we have the sheen. These are the only 2 versions that we have. Now I want to make one point here is that you notice these 3 dots are centered over the 3 spikes. So whether I have the loop at the end or not, they don't shift over, they stay over the top of the 3 spikes. That's basically it for seen and sheen. So let's look at this in some words. All right, so here we have words that have our variations of seen and sheen in them, and because this letter is very easy to recognize, which is 3 spikes, I think they sort of come right out at you. But notice this one, right at the beginning. There are 3 spikes and our 3 dots, so this is sheen. You know the rest of the letters. This word is shemal. Shemal means north. Okay. Now here's a word. Actually, it looks fairly complicated, but we know all the sounds that are in here. So where is our seen? Of course, right here. Okay, we know that because you're not going to have 3 spikes just like that with nothing on them. So we know that's a seen. Okay, notice this is our consonant sound, yeah. Remember, anytime this appears at the beginning of a word, it's a yeah. Okay, yeah. There's a seen with a sukoon on it, so we know there's no vowel. Yes. Here, a meme, an e, and a noon. Put this all together. Yasmin. Yasmin. Like the name Yasmin means jasmine. It's also a name, Yasmin. Okay, where is our seen here? So of course at the end, and notice it has that hoop because it comes at the end, giving that flourish to the end of the word. Now notice it's bigger than the dip that the noon makes under the word, but only slightly. Now just one final point before we go on. We've learned how to make seen here. You will sometimes see this done as a straight line, like the 3 spikes removed and it becomes a straight line, or in the middle of a word as a straight line. I strongly recommend that you do not write it this way because it becomes difficult for someone to tell if you mean a seen or you just have an elongated pause between your letters. And this is particularly in print. They tend to stretch letters out, and so it can become confusing. So I don't recommend that you do this single line in lieu of the 3 spikes. Okay, so right now you have enough to go ahead and do these exercises. Do those, come back, and we'll have a little bonus for you. Shukran jazilan.